Timothy and his sister Elizabeth anxiously waited for their dad to get home from work. It was Halloween. It was October 31st. They were so excited to go trick-or-treating. As soon as they heard the doorknob turn, they rushed him at the door as he walked through, still clad in his white optician's coat. Ronald rounded up his young children and he went out trick-or-treating, remembering the times when he was trick-or-treating, now wondering, how did I get so old as I'm walking my kids down the street? He accompanied his children to their friend's first stop of the night, 4112 Donerail Drive. He rang the doorbell. Nothing. The owners were taking much too long to answer the door. Children impatiently ran to the next house, leaving their dad in the dust. When Ronald finally caught up with the kids, he was sporting 5 giant pixie sticks. The children all greedily grabbed the neon sticks of sugar, but Ronald promised he would distribute the candy among the children when they got back to the house. After all, he was the one that waited. It was really late when they got home. He got the kids ready for bed, but before he fell asleep, Timothy requested a treat from his delicious haul. He chose the crown jewel, a 22-inch giant pixie stick. The sugar had stiffened some in the tube, so Ronald helpfully rolled the candy between his hands to loosen the contents for Timothy. The child hurriedly poured the confection into his mouth. Timothy recoiled. It didn't taste, Dad, like it's supposed to. In fact, it tasted awful. Dad jumped up. Ronald dutifully ran to get some Kool-Aid for his son to wash out the bad taste. But the Kool-Aid didn't make it very far. Timothy immediately started vomiting and convulsing. When the ambulance finally arrived, they found Ronald holding Timothy as he foamed from the mouth. Less than an hour later, Timothy was pronounced dead at the hospital. An autopsy revealed the 8-year-old had died from a fatal dose of cyanide. The 2 top inches of the giant pixie stick Timothy prized so much contained a dosage of cyanide that was enough to kill 2 adults. Thankfully, the other poisoned pixie sticks remained untouched. Ronald sobbed as he hypothesized at what an unidentified monster was handing out to children. He told the police officers he vaguely remembered getting the candy from 4112 Donerail Drive. He didn't get a look at the owner. He only saw a shadowy arm. When police arrived at 4112, they questioned the Melvins, but they were confounded when they learned Mr. Melvin didn't return home from work until 10:30 that night of Halloween, and Mrs. Melvin stopped answering the door when she ran out of candy at 6:45. That's before Ronald said he was there. Not to mention that none of the candy that Mrs. Melvin gave out that night were pixie sticks. Police interrogated the entire neighborhood and still couldn't find the source of the deadly candy. The dad, who had watched his children rush to his legs to say, "Please, Dad, let's go, it's Halloween," was beside himself. Already having a terrible year, and his son's death appeared to push him over the edge with grief. He was $100,000 in debt, 8 months behind in car payments, was being threatened with repossession. He held 21 jobs in the last 10 years, and he was struggling hard to keep his latest optician gig. He further strained the family financing by taking out a $10,000 life insurance policy on his children earlier in the year, to which his wife protested as an unnecessary expense. She probably would have objected to the additional 2 $20,000 life insurance policies that Ronald took out on Timothy and Elizabeth on October 3rd, if she had known about them. Mrs. O'Brien would have also been horrified to find out that mere hours after Timothy's murder, her husband called to collect on the policies. Ronald was a man who had never had a parking ticket in his life. By all accounts, he was a dedicated father and a devout member of the Second Baptist Church. But it only took a jury 46 minutes to find Ronald guilty of capital murder and 4 counts of attempted murder. Ronald didn't just kill his own son. He is the man responsible for killing Halloween for generations of children yet to be born. He's the reason we had to go to the hospital to have them x-ray everything. He's the reason we could no longer have popcorn balls or candied apples. Ronald Clark O'Brien, also known as the Candy Man by his fellow death row inmates, successfully perpetuated the decades-old myth that some despicable people violate Snickers and Milky Way bars with the intent on mercilessly killing innocent children. The truth is, and you should know it this Halloween, police have never documented an actual case of anyone randomly distributing poison goodies to children on Halloween. There is no madman giving out apples with razors, no arsenic-laced Twix. But in 1974, there was one monster who deliberately put cyanide in a pixie stick. His victim wasn't at random. His victim was his own child. So, this Halloween, let your kids eat their candy. Don't scare them with a legend that just isn't true. But I also wouldn't tell them about Timothy either. I had to share that story with you today. I find it fascinating that our childhood was changed because of a guy we've never even heard of. Had you ever heard that story before? He's the only one. Until today. On Monday, a trick-or-treat. Now, this is what I just said to you. No evidence. Police have never documented a single case except for that. This morning, last night, a trick-or-treat bag belonging to a child had a Ziploc baggie with a frightening substance, crystal meth. They received a complaint, police, of a suspicious package located in a child's Halloween candy. The powder found inside tested positive for methamphetamine. The child had not taken the drugs. Police believe the meth was placed in the child's bag during a Halloween event in the downtown area. Yada, yada, yada. It was in a Ziploc bag. Ziploc baggies can open. Yada, yada, yada. Now, I'm going to stand by that this never happened in America because this actually was reported on the Menominee Tribal Reservation. So this...
Okay.
It's technically
still
not
accurate.
America.
I will say, though, that's a little bit of a different story. It's not, if it's just a plastic bag of meth, that's not like hiding it in candy.
Yeah.
It's also...
Somebody dropped it into a bag or something.
And I will say, just like, remember the clown scare from a few months ago?
Oh, yeah.
You remember that? And then
whatever happened to that?
Nothing, because it was nothing, right? I mean, and I think like what happens with these stories, 99% of the time you find out that it's either a hoax or something with someone in the family or something like that. It's almost never, I mean, as you stated, never with candy.
Isn't that amazing?
It is amazing.
Did you have yours checked?
Yeah, when I don't know if I ever actually, I know some of my friends had gone to the hospital for the x-ray thing. I don't know if I ever did that, but my parents went through every piece of candy. Oh,
we did too. And I remember, I'm old enough, and I think you have to be about my age to remember this, or to live in a small enough town to where perhaps there are some towns still where this is okay, where you could get popcorn balls.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
I don't remember getting a popcorn ball, but I remember homemade things.
Occasionally,
very rarely. And honestly, every one of them my parents would throw out.
Yeah, see, when I was growing up, those were the real gets. I mean, there was a lady, Mrs. Olson, that lived down the street, and she would make these giant popcorn balls, and I remember them. And that was the get on the street. And people would make candied apples, caramel apples. And I remember being able to eat them and excited that you could eat them. And then later having to throw them all out. And my parents went, nope, 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 nope. And it was because of this guy.
I believe there's a poet who once outlined the idea that the good old days weren't always good, but tomorrow ain't as bad as it seems. And he, I think, executed a very interesting part here because, keep your popcorn balls. I want a Snickers. I get that there's a bit of nostalgia there and there's reverence for it, but I don't want I don't want you to cake together some popcorn. Give me a Twix.
Okay. Well, yes. Okay. This is also at a time when there wasn't Fun Size. I remember when they first came out with Fun Size, and I'm like, that ain't fun. This is not fun.
No. You can have less of the thing you like.
Right.
What joy you'll find.
How is that fun?
I was growing up, my big goal when I became an adult and I became, I had like $4 in my bank account was to buy full-size candy bars for the neighborhood. I always dreamt about doing that because I grew up, it was mostly fun-size stuff. And finally, I got to that point where I now have $4 in the bank account. And I came down to Texas and I bought the full-size bars. Like 3 people showed up. No one trick-or-treats anymore. There's like 4 people that come around the neighborhood. It's not even worth it.
I know. And these poor people that you do, because we go to a different neighborhood because nobody trick-or-treats.
Yeah.
And so we go to somebody else's neighborhood. And I wanted to say to Tanya, hey, listen, on Monday, we should go buy all of those houses and just drop off bags of candy. Because I feel sorry for these guys getting hammered every year.
You're going to donate candy to the trick-or-treaters?
Yes, I feel like we should.
I like that.